I guess, I mean, there's a whole lot of challenges when you want to get any kind of game going, and of course this, getting a spiritual sequel to Torment done had its own unique challenges. I think the first was that it was not something that you could really normally take to a publisher and get financed. It was considered more niche-oriented, more kind of an old-school product. Even though that sort of changed recently, but at the time, RPGs were not as popular, at least this form, and so crowdfunding was certainly a big part of getting it done. And then it was a function of getting the right team together to do it. I think that was the kind of the golden opportunity for me, in that we were about a year into Wasteland 2, and I was already doing some work with Colin McComb, who was one of the writers on Planescape Torment and on Planescape itself. Monty Cook had just done a crowdfunding for Tides of Numenera, and he worked on the original Planescape, and then we were working with Crass Savalone, we were working with Mark Morgan, who did the music for the original Planescape Torment. So I guess the band was all around, so it was a matter of me sort of bringing them all together and getting the financing for it, and then off we went and into production. And after we had a hugely successful crowdfunding campaign, we had I think we had the world record for like 1 week. We got $1 million in like 7 hours. It was a glorious day. There's been a great education process in crowdfunding development, both sides of the fence. They've learned that creativity is not a straight line. It's not as organized behind the scenes as much as you think, and there's a lot of iteration that's involved, and which is actually great. One of the difficult parts with a publisher is they want you to lay out the milestones. Some of them do, many of them do, 1 to 2 years out, they want you to adhere to those, where I don't like to adhere strictly to a milestone, because we adjust priorities constantly. Something feels good, something doesn't feel good, somebody could quit in the middle, we have to adjust it, so we're always scrambling. It's always like a little bit of chaos behind the scenes, and that's okay. That's the way it is in development. And I think that, again, that was an education process for the people, thinking, because in the beginning they had these grand ideas of how buttoned up we'd be with this stuff, but in reality, it's always kind of messy. But if you get the right people and the right focus and the right passion and the right heart, you can get a really good product out of it. And so I think that part, it gives us more latitude to develop, and that's how I used to do it when I was at Interplay back in the day. All during the 90s, we never had fast rules about that, and we'd have developers, they wouldn't hit their milestone, we'd just pay them anyway as long as it was moving forward in a positive way. When you're working in production on a game, or any entertainment for that matter, getting sort of blunt feedback is important, and often that's hard to have happen in an organization where everybody gets along with each other, and people are afraid of hurting each other's feelings, or maybe somebody just worked 4 weeks on a UI and they're just in love with it, and then you don't want to walk by and go, that sucks, right? You feel bad. The audience has no problem telling us that sucks, no matter how much effort was put into it. And so we get a certain candor, which is painful to hear sometimes, but that we need to hear. And so I like that, and it's a healthy part of it. And I think it's driven up that aspect of it. And always in development, for me, I've never cared where good ideas came from. A good idea is a good idea, whether it's from a vice president to a person in QA to an outside backer. It doesn't matter to me, a good idea. And so, we've actually changed UI. For this particular game, we put it out in early access. I mean, it's been about a year almost, I think. We did an alpha, we did an early access, and we changed the UI completely. I mean, parts of it we knew we were going to do anyway. When we put it out, we know that it's not 100% final, but I think the biggest thing is really a lot of the pacing of the game. They thought it was too slow in the beginning. There was a lot of things they didn't understand, and so we've tightened it up considerably since we first showed it off some months ago. We don't want to rely on memory lane as being the entertainment value of what we're doing, even though absolutely there's a nostalgic aspect to it, but the game has to be entertaining on its own. And so to me, the things that we're doing in the game are always entertaining. And I think cause and effect is the biggest thing, right? Which is that you as a player, you do something and then you see the results of what you've done. And then when that happens over and over and over again, now you feel fully immersed in the world. And even though you're reading, you've forgotten that you're even playing a game because these things fall down. I almost compare it to like when I'm watching a foreign film, right? In the beginning, all I can think about is the subtitles. But 20, 30 minutes in, if the movie's great, I forget I'm even looking at subtitles anymore. I'm just watching that film. I don't even know it's in French or German or whatever. I look at this the same way. So if we really make really great writing, really interesting stuff, you'll just start to be there. And we really want an experience where you play the game, you get to the end and you finish in it, and it was that same feeling of when you turn the page on that novel, one of your favorite novels of all time. So I think the perennial things of that cause and effect, of interesting things, it has great visuals, it has a lot going for it that doesn't require a nostalgia to appreciate. Part of the immersion, by the way, is that we have to create a lot of stuff that you're never going to see as a player, because by default, if we want you to have a personal experience where you try something and it pays off, and you try something else and it pays off, well, there were other ways to have done it, of course, and otherwise it'd be linear, so we have to create all these other things knowing most people won't see it on one playthrough, and that's something that we do at InXile, we commit pretty heavily towards. I would hope that if anybody played through that had played the original Planescape Torment, that they feel like this game was on par with the first one, and that it was as special and as wondrous and as otherworldly as the first one was. And if you hadn't played the first one, I would hope you'd go through it and go, that was just simply like no other game I've ever played before.